I'm with Richard, founder at Artificial Lawyer.
And I'm with Timo, the founder of Cosmonauts.
Here you go. So we're here to chat about our history. We're here to chat about what we see being exciting in the industry. And then, of course, we're here to talk about our joint venture, Legal Innovators,
Absolutely.
which is getting bigger
Mm.
and, of course, more relevant and exciting by every single year. So, Richard, if you remember, you and I met in mid 2016, I think it was. Very different worlds.
Very different world, yeah.
Yeah, you were a little bit more youthful. I had more hair back in the day. It's been exciting decades, not just for us as people, but also for the industry. What do you feel
Mm.
has been the most major change in the sector?
I think, well, to put it very simply, people are actually using technology now that really changes the game at a certain level. Whereas I think before it was kind of structural, it was operational. There was, and of course, that's how artificial law came into being in 2016. There are some there were some uses of sort of strategic technology, so highly productivity focused tools like Kira, Luminance, etc. That first wave of AI, machine learning, natural language processing, which really did change the way that lawyers worked, or it could have. But let's be honest, it didn't change the world. But then if you scroll forward to the end of 2022, the arrival of generative AI, the time to value is so much shorter. Now, there are still accuracy issues for sure, but generally, lawyers feel much more comfortable working with generative AI because you can put in natural language questions, you get a natural language answer back. And I think this really is the beginning of something very significant. And, as I say to other people, the train has finally left the station. It's moving fairly slowly still, but we've begun the journey.
And going back to when you started, do you remember which one's the first article that you put out that really sort of caught
Yeah.
people's attention? What was it about?
It was 2016, and I had gone to see a company called Raven. If you remember Raven, it doesn't exist any longer. It was bought by iManage. They were one of the first legal AI companies, at least in the UK. And I went to see them in Shoreditch, which is part of London. And they showed me an AI doc review for the very first time. And I was blown away. And I went home and I wrote an article, which I put on LinkedIn first. This is before artificial law really got started. And the title was, I have seen the future in a warehouse in Shoreditch. And back in those days, LinkedIn wasn't a place where a lot of people hung out. I got an enormous amount of engagements. And I think that was one of the things that really convinced me that AI was going to change everything. And I think that's what really was the catalyst. And, never looked back since then.
I mentioning Raven, I remember my time interacting with them. They were one of my first customers as well for the very first conference I put together. And it was a very different legal tech world. It was a time when, yes, iManage was a big player. They still are to this day, but there was another British company called Workshare, if you remember, also based out of Shoreditch, which was somewhat of the darling of the British legal tech system. And what happened is that those guys got acquired by Litera for their Litera Transact too. But a lot of the companies that we remember from those days, apart from some of the big ones that are still around, they either got acquired or they unfortunately ceased to exist.
Kira was bought by Litera. eBrevia was bought by Diffin, and then there were some changes. It's now spun out. It's going again, but as an independent company. There's been a lot of mergers. Some companies went bust. And a lot of that technology, as just mentioned, was, natural language processing, machine learning. So there's a whole new game now. And all of that has been charted through the various Legal Innovators events where we started in London in 2017. Is that right?
2018.
It was
I think it was
2018.
the first event. Yeah, the first event was 2018. And then things I call those years, and a lot of the people that still do things with us come and speak to those events, the OGs, the OG innovation leads in those companies. And it's actually kind of funny that we almost come into a second generation
Yeah, yeah.
of people being part of this industry, because I get exposed through the conferences to a lot of those new companies. I get exposed to new innovation managers in those law firms. When we talk with them about the history of things, a lot of them don't even
Yeah.
know
They don't know.
any of what has happened initially. And it's it just kind of gives you a bit of a sense
Mm,
of comfort that you've lived through all of that, and seeing where things are. Things used to be, I mean, even now things are choppy, but things used to be a lot
yeah.
more choppy back then. I think a lot of people don't appreciate how much the technology has developed.
Yeah, and just the market. I mean, in 2016, 2017, 2018, literally hundreds of new companies, legal tech companies sprung into life all around the world. Back when investment rounds, funding rounds were tiny. I
Yep.
mean, people were getting, you know, the kind of money now that was a fraction of what
Oh,
people
people
got.
were getting a couple of $100 grand, like, at most.
Yeah.
And now it's probably embarrassing to even say that you've raised a couple of hundred, like, for
And they leveraged that into successful businesses. But now, and of course, with generative AI, we've got a second wave. I wouldn't say hundreds, but there's certainly been dozens, I would have thought, on a global basis of new legal tech,
Yeah.
compliance, risk-related legal tech type companies coming out. And yeah, as you say, it's a whole new generation, and the Legal Innovators conferences has evolved with that. So now we've got the Legal Innovators California conference, which is growing and growing. And of course, this year we've just launched Legal Innovators New York.
And I'm super excited about the California event, actually, because this event, in similar spirit, um, as to what happens in general in the Silicon Valley, has really picked up in terms of how our startup alley has really performed there. We have very young, exciting companies that are coming to this event this year. Many people probably would have not heard of before, and for me personally, that has been one of the most exciting elements of this conference. The opportunity
Mhm.
to meet companies which are sometimes just a couple of months old.
Absolutely, but even some of our main sponsors, who people will get a chance to talk to and see in more detail when they come along to the conference in California, people like Legora and Harvey, even though they're very well known now, they're only, what, 2, 3 years old.
Yeah,
And so it really, as you were saying, it's a whole new generation of companies. And even some of the older companies, the very large companies that everybody knows, who've been around for a long time, to some degree, they've reinvented themselves. So there's a lot of change.
they had to.
Yeah.
They had to. I mean, one of the things that a lot of those companies that are new to the market to an extent don't appreciate is that 7, 8 years ago, there were no innovation teams in law firms, or even if they were tiny. There were barely any budgets for technology adoption
Beyond the basic,
beyond the basic.
Microsoft,
Yeah,
Westlaw, etc.
beyond the basic. Right now their budgets, where law firms are being capable to leverage to go and buy several solutions
Mm,
that essentially tackle the same objective and go and test them in parallel. It's a far more enabled environment from a go-to-market perspective.
yeah.
And I was speaking with someone over lunch today, and they're like, "Oh, like how do you think some firms were able to amass several hundred um, law firms as customers in such a short period of time?" Well, because the law firms are buying now.
Yeah. Yeah,
There,
but I think that it's because the environment is changing. There's an expectation amongst the clients because the
yeah,
clients, and this is, I think, one of the key things is that that first wave of AI, the in-house counsel were interested
mm,
to some degree, but they didn't feel compelled. That's very different now.
yeah.
It's still relatively small. I wouldn't say that all in-house teams are embracing generative AI, but a significant number are, and there are literally thousands upon thousands of clients. But
They still mostly, I would say, from what I see, they're still very much reliant on their law firm
mm,
to leverage most of the tech required to service them. There is definitely a change of attitude, but I'm shocked every time when I sit with a blue chip firm or a future 500 company and speak to their general counsel at one of the conferences and ask them, well, what was the latest stuff that you guys bought or what are you using internally? And they're like, we have nothing. And this is more common than people actually think.
yeah, but I mean, that is very true, but I think that there's also a growing number of people who really are engaged with AI now and other types of technology, which I didn't see in-house before. I mean, I'm so glad that we have a law firm day and
Mm,
an in-house day, and
mm.
people may not know that we always have at least 2 days. We have an in-house day and we have a law firm day for all of our conferences. And that really is exciting now because the in-house groups, the legal ops groups on that side of the story, they've got so much more to talk about now. And then, of course, on top of that, in London, which is our oldest conference, we've been doing the longest, we're going to be introducing another new day about litigation.
And the reason why we're doing that is because the litigation tech landscape has changed a lot in the UK over the last half a decade. In the US, it's always been a huge market. I mean, Discovery really was the OG legal tech in a sense in America. And um, I was speaking with someone else yesterday where people said, legal tech in the US was really e-discovery and nothing else. But
Mm,
in the UK, because technology has become more accessible, both from a usability standpoint, but also
mm,
from a commercial accessibility standpoint, firms are actually buying discovery solutions. Before they would just rely on external consultancies, ALSPs to service their e-discovery needs. But now more than ever, even in-house are buying
mm,
e-discovery solutions because it's far more cheaper processing information before you pass it over to your outside counsel. And in-house teams are very, very restrained for resources. They have to achieve more with less,
mm,
more than ever. I've read the report by a common client of ours, actually, Juro.
mm,
Very interesting report, which was around resources that in-house have access to based on the growth of scale-ups. And what the report concluded, from what I remember, was that it doesn't matter if that scale up has gone from 10 to 20 million revenue,
mm,
their legal resources remain static. So therefore, they have to achieve more with less, and the only way they can do so is by leveraging tech. So we do need more forums that can connect both in-house and law firms to those discovery solutions. Yes, it is true that most of them are still coming from across the pond,
mm.
but there's still exciting litigation tech coming from the UK. Actually, quite a few.
More
Quite
and
a
more.
few.
Absolutely.
There is a very exciting product coming to Legal Innovators California, Crimson AI, fully focused litigation tech. Another one I encountered recently, Augmentech.
Mhm.
Um, there was what was the other one that came to the November events?
Wexia. But also, I think, on top of this, we've also got a very, very profound move towards more litigation analytics,
Mm,
not just on the discovery
not
side,
just discovery.
but so you've got,
Trial view.
and you've got companies that are doing, Opus 2, for example, as well.
Yeah.
You've got people who are doing, litigation and analytics, timeline development, which is very much based around using generative AI, deposition analysis and summarization, the whole management piece. around litigation has really been sort of revolutionized with generative AI. So that area of litigation technology, which was just dominated by e-discovery and
Yeah.
e-disclosure, has really, really evolved now.
And it has been dominated by American companies, which I think it's also becoming more accessible for others to innovate in that space too.
And not just American, I mean, Canadian,
Yeah.
British, Irish. There's a lot going on, and I think that's why it's very good timing for us to be doing the litigation day, particularly in the UK,
Mhm.
because there is just so much more happening on the innovation side.
Yeah. And what comes after London is obviously New York. We're very excited about that event because it's been, it's been on the mental
Mm.
map for a while. There is no place like New York, but also New York is a challenging destination in general. But we're very blessed to have been able to partner with a major firm out there, Leighton Watkins. We'll be hosting the event at their beautiful premises in Midtown. It's at the end of November. Again, following a proven methodology, we'll have a law firm day and we'll have an in-house day. We'll be looking to engage anyone that's based out there on the East Coast of the United States.
Absolutely. And of course, as everyone knows, New York is the biggest legal market in America. In fact, it's probably the biggest single jurisdictional market in the world, I would have thought. And therefore, it's most likely, I haven't seen the numbers, but it's most likely the biggest legal tech market, at least potentially. So huge opportunities there. And also, things are changing. We're starting to see very, very, very large elite law firms that operate mostly through very, very big bases in New York, embracing technology and innovation in ways that 10 years ago they didn't. There I think there's a realization that things are changing, and also their clients are changing. Some of the big investment banks and private equity funds are embracing AI as well. I mean, the entire environment in what is a market that you might say was so successful they didn't have to think about change is now changing.
It's coming in as a client requirement as well. It's been so commonly mentioned by some of those heads of innovations that we host the speakers and attendees at those conferences that they are being dragged in client meetings more often than not because their clients require clarity. Clients do require technology utilization in line with what's really modern in the in this world. And I think you're on the money there. New York based law firms are the fastest one to
Mm.
um, really utilize this at scale.
I personally would say the British firms, actually, the top British firms, Magic Circle particularly, have really implemented legal tech tools in a meaningful way, probably more than in any other market. And I think that's because the UK market is so much smaller than the US market and is very competitive. You've got a much, much smaller number of large law firms. In America, you have literally dozens of very, very, very large firms. In the UK, it's a relatively small number. It's much, much more competitive. I think the impact of the big four in the UK and the fact that they have a lot of sway with the clients. I think that's had an impact kind of indirectly as well. But and that is why I think what's happening now in New York is so exciting because some of those really, really top names in the US, those firms which you thought, someone might have thought don't need to change at all, are genuinely starting to think about how they need to bring in tech, not just knowledge management systems or whatever it is, just to run the business, but to actually change the means of legal production, actually to change the productivity side. And that's very exciting because you might say they're the top of the mountain, right? They're the summit. So yeah.
How much of this is prompted by um, industry pressure, and how much of this do you think is prompted by the fact that we now use AI in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
For like personal reasons, and now you get a lot of partners going up to those heads of innovations and saying, oh, I saw this too, like, are we using this? And again, someone told me a few days ago they had such conversation where a partner brought up a tool that they found particularly exciting, and then the innovation had to tell them that, you know what, we actually have a very similar tool
Already.
that we've been licensing for over 2 years, and we've been trying to get you to use it, but only now, with obviously all with AI becoming a household name, if you wish.
Yeah.
So I do think that the industry as a whole has to be exceptionally grateful to OpenAI
Yeah, for kicking it off in November 2022.
for kicking it off in November 2022 and making AI really a part of our daily routine.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd say that there's like probably 3 key things. Like, one, and you picked up on all 3 of them. Like, one, it's part of the environment now. Like a lawyer goes home and their kids are using AI for their schoolwork, right? It's become part of the environment, and they're probably using it too, even if they're not using it immediately on their own work. You know,
Someone is.
Someone is.
Yeah.
Secondly, you've got the tools. The tools are coming into these firms and they're using them, or they've been to a conference or something else and they've seen them and they're saying, well, I would actually like to be able to summarize a document or do the red lines or help to redraft a clause using AI. I want all these things. So you've got the internal pull. And then I think the third bit is on the client side. The clients are starting to change. They're asking questions about what the law firms are doing, and they're also adopting the tech themselves. And so it's really sort of a perfect sort of catalyst. It's coming from 3 sides. And and as mentioned earlier, the train is only just now leaving the station. There's a long way to go.
And I do think that there's one last caveat to all of this. I think that the way that we have the ability to interact with those systems in a conversational manner, I don't think it's too different to the way that partners interact with their juniors and their associates and their trainees. And I think that has made that whole experience feel a lot more familiar. So there's somewhat of an anthropological element to it. You don't really, while it's actually on the 2 extremes. You don't really have to know how to use it, but also if you master it, it feels a little bit to me like snowboarding. It's easy to pick up, but it's hard to master.
Right. Yeah, and good point. I mean, for me, I always think that generative AI feels like it was made for lawyers. Right? Lawyers live and breathe in a world of text. And the reason why most legal tech couldn't really move the dial that far, it could move it a little bit, but not that far, is because language understanding, semantic understanding, concept understanding, and then actually reproducing an answer in good, solid legalese that made sense was incredibly complicated and difficult to do. But generative AI through large language models has been able to achieve that. And it does almost feel as if, a lot of these LLM producers were making technology or have made technology just for the legal world. They didn't, of course, but that's how it feels. And, we really are only just at the beginning of this change.
It is at the infancy. I was reading a Gartner report several weeks ago, and for most people that think that we're adopting AI at scale, actually legal is at the very bottom compared to AI adoption in relevance to a lot of other professions: accounting, finance, marketing.
But it just shows that people like ourselves and people listening to this, we, to some degree, we've immersed ourselves in the legal tech and innovation world. But, the legal industry is vast. Some people say that it's as much as $1 trillion globally. There are literally millions upon millions of lawyers on a global basis. Thousands upon thousands of law firms, thousands of in-house legal teams. There's an enormous growth potential to this area.
And the interest has matured as well. Before it felt like legal tech, and a lot of those legal conferences were reserved for a small group of enthusiast people and firm, if you wish. But now we see more and more people that have never been to a legal tech event before, and that's exciting.
And I mean, one thing I would like to see, if there was one thing I would like to see in terms of change, I would like to see more and more practicing lawyers taking part. Now, we're doing very well on the in-house side. We've got practicing general counsel and other in-house lawyers coming and taking part and speaking. And we do have several people who are practicing lawyers on the law firm side, which is fantastic. But if there was any development, I would like to get more lawyers actually coming along and taking part.
we're trying, but they got a bill, Richard.
I know. I got a bill. Exactly. But if they do come to Legal Innovators, they'll probably meet some interesting clients.
True. And at the end of the day, with ever improving technology world, the quality of legal services will only improve to a point where most firms will offer a very similar level of quality of delivery. So your most important point of difference will be your ability to attain and retain business. So coming to those conferences and training your business development skills is exceptionally important.
Well, and also, let's face it, the reality is that legal tech is now part of law firm marketing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, law firms need a good story to tell their clients, but underneath that, there needs to be a reality. They actually need to, because the clients are informed, they're up to date. And so, it's marketing, but it's not just marketing, it's for real. I mean, the clients want to know what you're doing with AI. How are you going to help them? So yeah, I mean, I think that's another area that we're going to see a lot of change in.
I think that people have the ability to see through the smoke and mirrors that may have not been as evident in the last few years. By people, I mean clients. And I think that, again, that's due to the fact that AI it's very much present in our reality. And I think that it's a fantastic business development tool for those law firms. But as you said, it needs to be backed by genuine utilization and genuine use. And I think that for most parts it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm feeling very optimistic about it, and I'm very, very much, just to round off, looking forward towards the California event, which is in June 11th and 12th in San Francisco. A great venue,
Market Street,
yeah,
actual venue,
just off Market Street near the Modern Art Gallery. And we've got some fantastic speakers, fantastic organizations. We've got Y Combinator, we got Uber, we got Google,
got
we
Meta.
got some of the largest law firms out there. We got Cooley, we got Wilson Sonsini, you name it. It's going to be a tremendous couple of days, and we're very much looking forward to seeing you there.
And following that, we have Legal Innovators London, brand new venue, larger venue, slicker venue, lighter,
new and improved.
Same old, but new and improved.
Exactly.
4th to the 6th of November, with an additional litigation day on the 6th, and then to wrap things up, 19th and 20th of November in New York City.
Which is a great place to do some Christmas shopping ahead of the end of the year, and we'll wrap up the year for us. And then it's on to 2026.
Yeah. Do it all again and maybe more.
Exactly. So thank you very much for listening, and see you at the next conference.